Welcome back to the Bourbon and BS podcast. This is episode 177, part 2. If you guys are interested in part 1, you're just listening to the audio, or you're just tuning in live now since we've broken this up into 2 feeds. We want to invite you guys to watch 177, part 1, which we reviewed not only pretty much the entire lineup from Redbreast whiskey. So the Irish whiskeys went Irish tonight. We have Adrian still in the garage here.
What's up?
Schellebarger here is he brought all these fine gifts, and we only have 2 on the screen right now, but we had a total lineup of how many? 6 bottles, and we are now also, to add to the mix, if you guys were listening at the end of part 1 or watching at the end of part 1 or watching on Instagram live that we did, he made us some smoked old fashions with the Redbreast 15 as well.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
And you and I have the maple.
We had maple, and Nate chose cherry.
Nate chose
What's that
cherry.
It's good.
It is very tasty.
Very tasty. So now we're.
I mean, I haven't had your guys's, so I don't know, if it actually is different using that different wood. So you've done all of them.
Yes.
Like, do you notice like a distinct difference?
I noticed the maple I think pairs good because it's sweet and it has that good smoke to it. The cherry is harder to distinguish just because I do use a lot of cherry and cherry juice.
Mm-hmm.
And then the maple cherry apple's kind of weird. If you let it sit in there a while, you do sort of get kind of it's hard to define what apple would sort of taste like. I think I personally, like when I'm tasting it, it just tastes weird. I think the maple is what I can pick out most of the time when I'm smoking it.
Yeah.
But I mean, I've let them sit in there for 30 seconds. I let them sit in there for 3 minutes one time, and it tasted like you were drinking a Lafroig, like that heavy smoke.
Very smoky.
Yeah.
See, with the cherry, I don't get as much smoke, but I think it just adds another level to the cherry that's already in there.
Right.
So it's not really taking anything away from the mixture itself. It's not necessarily adding to it. It's just, I think, maybe
right.
Solidifying that cherry flavor from that cherry syrup and the actual cherries that are in the drink.
Yeah. Carson says they're both amazing. He's my neighbor. He'll be with us tomorrow for the rabbit hole.
Oh, nice.
Tomorrow.
Nice.
So,
yeah.
He takes and tries all my drinks. So he'd be a good one to.
So I think there's going to be a special on that menu tomorrow night. So it's going to be like $15 special price for a Derringer old fashioned.
I've made those, and they are good.
So you may not purchase it then because you've already had
I will purchase it.
You probably will. You probably will. Yeah. All right. So guys, so this is part 2. We've got a couple people like, oh, you guys are just getting on. It's pretty late. This is something that we are trying to really separate to a point. So I hope you guys bear with us a little bit. But
instead of a 2-hour one podcast,
we do it on the audio. We want to see what's going on. So I'm not sharing this to all the whiskey or the cigar pages. This is more beyond the BS. So you guys out there, I encourage you, if you think it's fitting to be on those pages, I hope you guys do share it, but I don't want to be the one that does it right now. So I hope you guys can do that for me. If you guys are listening to the audio on iTunes, Spotify, whatever it might be, I hope you guys also share that as well. Subscribe, like, and everything else. Get the numbers up there for us. So tonight it is Know When It's Right. I've known Adrian for a little while, but I don't know his whole story. So I texted him, asked him to give me a little bit of a background. And so it was cool. He actually sent me like an audio
while I was driving
message while you were driving. But it was kind of cool because I got to listen to a little bit about you, more than I knew already. But part of this is there's a lot of things, with jobs, with personal relationships, everything else. Even with whiskeys and cigars, you know when it's right, you know when it's wrong. Like it's not for you, right?
Right.
So Adrian, you give a little bit of backstory here, but most recently, Adrian has gotten married.
Yep.
What is that made out of?
It's a silicone.
Silicone, nice. Yeah. That's really rare, right?
Well, it's nice for when you're not wanting a heavy piece of whatever stuck to your finger.
No, I know.
I
it's
don't
all
like
the rage
rings.
now.
I hate rings.
I know it's all the rage. I got it. But right, so you just got married. So Adrian, give us a little bit of background for those out there that don't know you.
All right.
We had some questions early on in part 1 about that, but
So
know when it's right is the topic, and so let's frame it here a little bit with where you are.
yeah. So a lot of your guests, they're either business owners or they've, done some really crazy special things, or, they're, I'm none of those. I don't own a business. I've not done any special things. But I like to have a good time. My story is, I was born and raised here in Ohio. I live in Belle Fountain, Ohio, which is about an hour west of here, off 33. My dad moved us to Indiana, Greensburg, when I was finishing my 8th grade year of high school. And I grew up in Indiana, obviously freshman year all throughout high school, did some college out there. And it's funny when you said that know when it's right was the topic, because you asked me if I had a topic and I really didn't have one.
You
but
did.
That was a good one, because my story, which is, again, like I said, nothing special, but it plays into the topic really well. When I graduated high school, I really didn't know what I wanted to do. And academically, I was pretty smart. Technically, I wasn't going to go into like the automotive industry as far as like wrenching on stuff. I wasn't, going to be a doctor or a lawyer or anything like that. Wasn't into business, but I knew I wanted to do something, and I wanted to do something that was challenging to me. So I went into EMT school. I got my EMT certificate, and then I went straight into paramedic right out of high school. No experience whatsoever. And it was eye-opening to me because I was really good at it, but having no experience, I figured out almost towards the end of paramedic school that this wasn't going to work, because I didn't have any experience. So I wasn't really technically old enough to work as an EMT. I was 19, 20 years old. I worked at an Aldi. I managed an Aldi, and it was difficult to work at Aldi in the food restaurant or food grocery industry, but then turn around and do 12-hour clinicals 4 or 5 days of the week in various hospitals around Indy, and keep the same edge on both fronts. Like, I had to know how to,
yourself at that point. Yeah.
And having not like working as an EMT, you want to work for a provider that pays well, which is hard. But you also want to work for a provider that gives you a lot of experience. So when you're younger and you don't have a lot of experience, the good providers won't hire you because you're not old enough for insurance reasons to drive their trucks, and you don't have the experience that they want for you to work for them. So you're working for like transport agencies, doing like 911 transport from like nursing homes back and everything. You don't get a lot of in the field experience, which is what I really desperately needed, because I was now in paramedic school. And most of the way through paramedic school, I started, about 3/4 of the way, I started struggling really bad because I didn't have the experience that everybody else had. Everybody else in my group had worked as an EMT for years. And then that's why they were in paramedic school, because they wanted to take that step. I was doing it bam, bam, bam.
Yeah,
and there is a difference between being an EMT and a paramedic.
Yes. So a lot of the misconception is EMTs are just, taxi drivers, ambulance drivers. For BLS, or basic life support calls, like, you are in the back. The paramedic will most of the time drive. If you are capable of taking care of the patient at the time, you can be the one in the back taking care of them. Okay. As soon as it goes into ALS or advanced life support, the EMT is driving, the paramedics in the back intubating, running IVs. Indiana, EMTs can't run IVs. You can't intubate. You can do what they call a combi tube, but it's not the same thing. But I knew that, eventually I wanted to maybe go RN. And so there's a paramedic to RN transition that is very popular. Okay. But to do that, I needed to have that experience, and I wasn't getting the experience. And I knew in that industry, you don't want to be a bad paramedic, because a bad paramedic can, kill people.
Usually a downside.
Get you fired, or not, you won't get a good job. So I knew it was right to step away. I had a good time. I loved it. I was really good at it. I loved all my people that I worked with. But, I stepped away before I either did something irresponsible, or before I got into the point where it was all right, I've spent all this money to become a paramedic, and now I can't become one because I suck, because I don't have the experience.
Okay.
And then, going from there, I quit my job at Aldi. I started in manufacturing, worked at a business out there called GCOM. It was like a metal stamping facility that made different parts for various automotive companies. And because
automotive side
yep.
of it.
And I just wanted something that was going to give me a shift job, not like Aldi's, you're working 6 a.m. to 3, 9 a.m. to 5, 1 a.m. to 9. Like it varies from day to day. You don't know what day you're going to get off. You don't know what your hours are. I didn't like that. So I wanted a shift job. I wanted second shift. And so again, I knew it was right. That's what I wanted to do. And again, my family who had moved out there for the Honda plant had then already moved back to Ohio. My dad the assignment had ended for my dad. He moved back. I was living on my own. Sort of living on my own.
How old were you at this point?
I was 20.
Okay.
And
still pretty young.
Yep, still young. I was dating. Towards the end of this, I was dating my current wife now. And nice. She had always said, like, hey, you need to come back. Because she lived where I live now. Like, she was from my original spot in Ohio before we moved to Indiana.
Marysville, Bellefountain
area, Russellvania. Yeah. And so
it's northwest of Columbus
area. Yeah. So it was one of those things where it was like, I knew I needed to figure out what I wanted to do professionally, where I was going with my life, what I was going to do like with college or, whatever. But I also didn't want to live 3 hours away from my girlfriend. And that's also kind of when I started to figure out that I had a lot of great friends, but I wasn't surrounded by people who were positive about the rest of their life. That was like
what were they? Like, what would you classify them as? Like, if they're not positive about the rest of their life, or
if you're doing good, you're doing good. Like, okay. I mean, you don't have to do better. You don't need to search for anything better. You don't need to strive for anything better. And then I also, at 20, I hung around a lot of people that partied. Underage partiers, people who were 25, 26 years old, or didn't have anything going on in life and partied. So I was doing a lot of partying. And like less than a month, it was like 15, 20 days before my 21st birthday, I caught an underage
drinking, yeah.
And that really kind of opened my eyes because one, I blew a .02. I had been sipping a beer for an hour at a party that it was a Wednesday night at 1 a.m. People were playing loud music. It was one of my
things and drinks on Wednesday nights.
Yeah, us now, but hey, no loud music this time. No wannabe hometown rappers.
Just wait till the after hours. Nate gets wicked on the mic.
Yeah. So that caught me my first dose of, hey, you need to mature up. You need to do something with your life because you have a lot of people surrounding you that really don't care about your best interests.
Yeah.
And so I started scheming on how to move back to Ohio.
Were you living with your girlfriend at the time?
No, she lived here in Ohio, 3 hours away.
Oh, you okay? I got
you.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, so I moved back to Ohio 6 years ago in 2015. I started working at Honda, started doing cars and coffee with Paul and all that. And that's kind of when I started to realize, like, wow, I got a different sort of friend group. I kept a lot of my good friends from back in Indiana, but I also quit the partying and I got real mature. And I knew that was the right thing, because if I would have stayed in Indiana, I don't think that I would have had the push to do anything better. I don't think I would have had the push for promotions, push for better seating in my job, buying a house or anything like that. I would have stayed in that cesspool of just being complacent.
Well, and Ray Chester said, the complacence.
Sean
exactly. Anderson, who was on last week, said good enough people.
Yeah.
That they're the good enough people, or those that like to stand still.
And I don't want, like, I doubt anybody listening is from them, but like if anybody who is in that crowd where like you've reached where you want to be, that's not bad. But when you're 20 and you're in your formidable, you could either go one way or the other.
Yeah.
I would really hope that the people who are on that one way or the other page, if they haven't decided already where they're going to go, they do surround themselves with somebody or a group of people who at least do push them to maybe not be just good enough. Because then you'll find out where you truly want to head. But 6 years later, I'm working at Honda, love my job. We just, we bought a house 3 years ago. I got married a month ago. We're doing pretty good. So
Pedals down right now.
yeah.
I want to comment on that, and I think that is part of the message, right? That the good enough people, the complacents. I don't think you're trying to do that, and I'm not defending anyone. Like you said, I don't know if anyone's listening from that area.
No.
But at the same time, it's like, if that is good enough, if that is what they want, and they are living they wake up happy, they go to bed happy, and everything's going well, that's fine. There's not everyone's going to just be completely driven. Not everyone's going to be pushing forward constantly. I think more often you have people that are kind of in between. It's like it's good enough. I want a little bit more. And then you have the sadly, I think the negative side of it is that nothing's good enough. And I'm just waiting for the next best thing.
Right.
Which I think that is something that you're
right. You're too
there's
expectant.
a fine line right there
Yeah.
that you have this positive. You mentioned in the message you sent me, like this positive attitude. You surround yourself with positive people. It's not the negative people that are looking for that growth or that next best thing or anything like that, because I look at those types of people that they're just not happy. And nothing's going to
make them happy. Yeah.
No matter what the house you live in, no matter the person you're with, no matter what it might be, you're always looking for the next best thing. And I don't think that's what you're saying about this.
Yeah.
I think you're saying you want growth. You want to be excited about something, but it's more genuinely pure.
Right. So Victoria said stagnant, and
there's a difference between what she's saying is
stagnant.
There's a difference between complacent and stagnant. Complacent, like, I'm cool with where I'm at. Like, if something better comes along, like, cool.
Yeah.
I'm at least
happy
happy where I'm at. Stagnant is just,
that was a
stagnant pond water that grows.
Yeah, that was a good blend of the people that I was kind of surrounding myself with back in Indiana. There was a lot of complacent people who were really, they're happy, they were good, they had their home, they had their family, they had their truck, their car, whatever. They were doing good, they were adulting properly.
There's something to be said about the fact that it's like, yeah, do I want to do all this stuff? Absolutely.
Right.
Do I also want to pay my mortgage? And if I need to replace something in the house,
Yeah.
the fridge goes out, I got to make sure I'm okay for that too. You know what I mean? Because then we don't have a fridge.
Right.
There's a balance there on how you, in your words, adult.
Yeah.
You don't have to necessarily just be complacent, but there can be some growth. But go out.
Yeah. And like another thing that kind of drove me to, move and change things was like financially. I know at 20 years old, you're not making bank. Most people are not making, money moves at 20. But at that time, like, I had a lot of times where, like, my bank account would be $5 negative, like, and it was like, what am I doing? Like,
I'm looking for some overdraft protection, please.
Yeah, right. That was awesome.
Yeah.
It was like, I know that I can fill my car up and go negative if I only have $5 in my account because it will overdraft. And I'm like, I played that a couple times, but it never set well with me because I'm like, I know that's not right.
No.
And but the problem is a lot of the people that I surrounded myself with all played that same game, and they were all fine with it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, how do you guys do this? Like, I don't like doing this. And so that was like when I moved here to Ohio and sort of changed my whole way of thinking about, like, I need to do things right. I need to sort of, like I said, mature, grow up a little bit. Like when I first started getting like that bank account that started looking healthy for my age and my growth or where I was at, that's where I was like, all right, like, I can do this. Like, now, like, what do I need to do to continue to grow, to buy, like, as I wanted to buy a house, we wanted to buy a house. Like, but at the time I couldn't because I didn't have, the means or the, the way, but I knew that if I continued to make the moves that I knew were right, and that people were telling me, like, hey, like, it'd be smart of you to do this, it'd be smart of you to do this, that it all clicked. And I finally, after going from 20 years old to, partying on Wednesday night at 1 a.m., getting an underage, to 6 years later, we have a nice house, we're married, we both have nice cars. And I know that's not, I'm not trying to say like that's what everybody needs to do, but if I hadn't have done any of that, I truly think that I would be on a way different path right now.
Oh, I assure you would be.
Yeah. Like, with Cars and Coffee, and I know, like, that's
so
not
explain
really
Cars and Coffee to people, because not everyone's, from Columbus.
Cars and Coffee, every state, every community kind of has their own version of Cars and Coffee. And in a nutshell, it's Cars and Coffee. It's car meet on whatever day of the week.
I remember
whatever
Cars and
morning.
Coffee years ago. It was at the Lenox, which
Yep.
is an old movie theater here.
Yep. So there's
And it was
there's a
just
couple.
literally very informal. So when I first met you, and you're like, yeah, doing Cars and Coffee, and there's like sponsors and like
Mhm.
there's all this stuff going on. I was like, oh, I went with my friend, like, because he had a cool car, and like there's a bunch of like just guys
Mhm.
and girls that were hanging out, and the only thing open was like the coffee shop by the movie theater. We just hung out in a parking lot, and everyone like looked at cars,
Mhm.
kind of like a bike night.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
now you have sponsors.
So that's a different Columbus Cars and Coffee.
Okay, sorry.
So there's a couple cars. There's a couple Columbus Cars and Coffees. The one that was at Lenox is a weekly one.
Okay.
They're no more. I don't think they're any longer at the AMC, but they're with Buyers Auto now. They do like kind of the similar to what we do. Like not every Saturday, but most of the Saturdays. But our Columbus Cars and Coffee, like we're once a Saturday, once a month, twice a month. We do different areas. We're not kind of single space, but we
you go big.
Yeah, we go big. We have a lot of sponsors. We're able to do really cool things. But that's one of the things is like when I moved to Ohio in 2015, I just happened to get caught up with Cars and Coffee with Paul. And
Who's Paul?
Paul is the guy who started Cars and Coffee 13 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And it was something that like is I could go do and be surrounded by a lot of people who had a lot of really cool cars, but had not only just cool cars, but information to give and tips. And like, they would like, if you didn't just go to them and be like, hey, I only like your car, not you, obviously, you wouldn't become friends,
right? More
or less. But like, if you valued their knowledge and friendship more than you did their car, you started to, kind of catch on that, I have a lot of friends in different industries that can teach you a lot of really good knowledge. It's helpful. And
my nephew does one of the Cars and Coffee meets.
Yeah. And it's awesome because if you become, sort of acquaintances or friends with these people, you start to kind of take on a little bit of their mindset. And like some of the things that I've gotten to do through Cars and Coffee, driving insane cars or going to insane meets and stuff that I would never have dreamed that I would have done. All just kind of happened due to realizing, back in Indiana, I wasn't going to be able to do any of that if I didn't sort of change my ways. So
I can always tell when Cars and Coffee is having a meetup in the Easton area because it'll be on a Saturday. I'm driving from Hilliard all the way on the west end of town to Easton, and I'm on 270, the outer belt here, and all these high-end exotics and sports cars are passing me, and I'm like, oh, must be a meetup today.
Yeah, you'll be driving, doing the speed limit, and next thing you know, a Venador flies past you doing $120.
I'll actually be honest. I'll give some credit to the guys that pass me on the freeway. Most of the time, I'm doing between 65 and 70, and really they're just kind of slow rolling past me.
Yeah, they like, stealth it.
I have never had any of the Cars and Coffee guys pass me that were doing more than 75 or 80.
Really?
maybe you came later.
Adrian wasn't driving any of those cars. No, so you hit on obviously a lot of information there.
Yeah,
good points. Ray says sounds like the bourbon and BS community. I think he's alluding to what I know a guy like Ray, and then Sean says that your Cars and Coffee was kind of like my falling into special ops. So no. Sean, if you want to expand on that a little bit. But I think it's about meeting people that are influential to you based on a common bond, right? So there's a hobby there, right? So it's not because you work with them. It's not because you grew up with them. It's not because of anything else, but you start having these hobbies that you surround yourself with like-minded people.
Yep. Surround yourself,
But with that Cars and Coffee, with a cigar shop, with Bourbon BS community, there's also going to be some assholes. There's going to be some people that are very full of themselves. Like you have to also walk into those situations, and I'm not putting words in your mouth, Adrian, but at those meets and everything else, those events, there's some douchebags.
Oh, they're for sure.
There's some assholes. There's some people that are like, "Why are you talking to me? I could just buy and sell you." You know what I mean? Because did you see what I'm driving? And you're like.
And the good thing,
right?
The good thing about our community, and I think the car community
I'm not bashing. I'm not saying anything bad. There's always those guys. There's always those.
They
girls.
stick out like a sore thumb.
Yeah, they don't come back.
They don't. Well, either they don't come back or they come back all the time, but nobody's standing there talking about their car because he's the one that's standing in front of his car saying, "Look at my car! Look at my car! Look at my car!"
Yeah.
And like, "Oh,
Look at me! Look at
yeah."
me!
And eventually, they single themselves out, and nobody wants to talk to them because it's like, "Hey, we don't. You're an asshole. Like,
Yeah.
why do you got to do that?"
Yeah.
That's a nice
They
thing.
ostracize themselves.
Yeah, they do. They don't realize it, but they're bringing so much attention to their bad personality that nobody really wants to talk to them. But yeah,
Thanks for doing the hard work for me.
yeah. You have a really cool car. Not you. If you could go over there, that'd be
That's
great.
an awesome car. The owner's kind of a dick, though.
Well, if the car's the best thing, or whatever it might be, is the best thing about them, then that's obviously very telling.
But it's funny too, because like I've seen some people and met some people who were like that in the beginning because they didn't really know us, they didn't necessarily know what we were about, and they came thinking that it was a contest.
Yeah.
Columbus Cars and Coffee and the other Columbus Cars and Coffee, it's not about a contest. It's not. We don't give out trophies. We don't give out ribbons. Right. We don't give out. We do, like, our Cars and Coffee does tend to park the exotics with the exotics, simply because that's mainly what people do come there to see, is the exotic stuff that they don't get to see every day. So we do like to park the Lambos with the Lambos.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know what I mean? Yeah. And we catch a lot of flack for that because they're like, oh, we don't officially say it, but it looks like we're playing, your car's not cool when they pull in, and we don't, but I've met and seen people who come and show up that are, pretentious, they're assholes, they think that they're the run of the crowd, whatever car they drive. And then they see what we're about. They see us on a contest. They see that they're not winning any trophies. They're not they're not there to get the best spot or to get the best pictures taken. And 3 or 4 meets later, they're coming to lunch with us after the meet. And they're like, I thought this was supposed to be like a car show, like a concours event. It's like, no, like, we don't judge your car. We don't grade your car. We
bring you together. Yeah.
Bring you together and come back. We'll go to, whatever restaurant. We'll go to Walensky's or whoever and have an old fashioned and a steak.
Tinder Box at Easton.
Well, I think
you've seen us a lot of times. Yeah. You'll ask us all the time, how was your meet? It's like, oh, it was great.
Yeah.
I think the car community, kind of like cigars or whiskey, it's like, that car works for you. Awesome. May not be my taste. You love it. Good for you. Same thing with cigars. You like to smoke what you like to smoke.
Mm-hmm.
Who cares what other people like to smoke? As long as you enjoy what you're smoking, smoke it. As long as you enjoy what you're drinking, drink it. Who cares what everyone else says? Like, you don't have to drink all the rare and expensive stuff. Find the bottle that you like, find the cigar you like, find the car you like, and just fucking roll with it.
And that tying back into the subject, like, when you've reached, when it's right, when you've reached the right community or the right people to be around that don't judge you for what you're drinking. Like, they don't, you're there to have fun. You're there to enjoy yourself. You're there to just relax. That's your group. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So, that there's a big part of that, though, is like going back, like you said, bringing back to the topic, you're enjoying it.
Right.
If you're doing, well, yeah, but I mean, like, you're talking about these people that are bringing their cars to these meets, and it's like, at first they're trying to impress, they're trying to do all that stuff. It's like, there's no enjoyment there, right?
Right.
That's a gratification thing. That's not the same thing as going to an event like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Once a week, once a month, whatever it might be. And you've made it whatever. You're driving the most expensive car at the location, right? But why'd you go? To show off, or are you really like enjoying it, right? That's where I'm going back to the knowing it's right. I go back to your story, though, and it's what I really like about that is it's the, I guess, the opposite side of it is that you knew it was wrong.
Yeah.
And that's what brought you here.
I knew it wasn't right.
So you sometimes, someone said, I think it was it Ryan Jones, about hitting rock bottom?
Yeah.
Like, you didn't really hit rock bottom in that extreme, but you realized that this isn't me. This isn't what I want to do. This isn't what I want. So I need to surround myself with the right people. But even when you start forging ahead and you start plowing ahead and you're like, all right, so now I found this hobby that I really like, I like all this stuff. And you're not driving a 6-figure car, right? But you're in the industry. You surround yourself with this dynamic. And even in that dynamic, you can actually pick out the people that you're like, well, no, that's right, because these people are very, very nice. They're very welcoming. I learn from them. They're actually asking me questions about me.
Yeah,
and then you have the other people that you're just like, well, I don't even know why they're here. They're just here to show off their car, and they're going to go home, and they're going to be miserable in their big house.
Right.
Yeah. So I mean,
Yeah.
I think that's what you're hitting on, is that there is something that you know it's right, because it brings enjoyment to you.
Yeah. Like growing up, like I was always the nice kid. I was always the one who tried to include people. I never tried to get in trouble. I hated getting in trouble.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't like to run with anybody who did get in trouble, because I felt like I was going to get in trouble with them if I was, guilty by association. So as soon as I graduated high school and I started partying and doing all the stuff that, good kids aren't supposed to do. Right.
Cool guys.
Yeah. But when I got that underage, it was like, this isn't right. Like, this isn't how this isn't what I'm supposed to be doing. Like, I knew it, because I knew
I had thoughts when you were doing this stuff too, before you got caught. Like, did you still say like, this is what I should be doing?
Yeah.
I should be doing, but I shouldn't be doing. Like,
and it was the easier thing to always go to the parties than it was to just stay home. Because it was like, oh, I can go have fun besides stay home and not, because it was like, why stay home? My mentality was, why stay home and do nothing and be safe, or play Xbox or hang out with somebody who was nice. Instead, I would choose to go to these parties where there would be 20, 30, 40, 50 people.
Why'd you go?
Yeah. I had a buddy.
I was the opposite.
I had a buddy that me and him were like brothers, and we took care of each other, but he really enjoyed it. And I enjoyed being there with him, but I didn't really necessarily enjoy being there with everybody else.
Okay.
And it's not his fault that I got caught, and it's not his fault that I got under their age, whatever. But like,
no.
we rode the same cop car to jail. And like,
bonding. Bonding.
But like, we looked at each other, and I'm like, hey, dude, like, we got to change. Like, this isn't what we're supposed to be doing. Like, we're better than this. Like, we're we can definitely chill out and have drinks when we're old enough. We can definitely chill out and have, some fun when we're old enough, but like, let's do it responsibly. And, he finally found that out, a little while ago. Like, yeah, that's the way to do it.
Yeah.
See, when I was younger, there were times where I sat there and looked at my life, and I was like, man, my life is kind of boring. But it's because I had some great examples growing up of what not to do.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why when I was in high school or when I was in college, like, I didn't have people that I ran around with. I didn't go to parties. I didn't drink until 2 days before I graduated college.
What?
It wasn't until I was done with all my exams and finals and everything. Because the way I looked at it was, I wasn't going to college to major in beer pong. I was going to college to major in biology. So I'm there for school, not for beer pong. So that's what my focus needs to be. But it was also, like I said, I've seen a lot of people that were very close to me who made some wrong decisions. They had a lot of fun doing it, but they made some wrong decisions that had some very significant negative impacts on their life. And so seeing those examples, I was like, you know what? I don't want to do that. What's the common thread in all this? All right, I'm just going to avoid all that shit. And it may be boring, but at least I never lost a job because of it or got thrown in jail because of it.
Right.
That has nothing to do with you. I'm talking about family.
But like Ian says that he learned what not to do by trial and error. Like me growing up, I tried not to do anything wrong because I hated getting in trouble.
Oh, so me too.
But I started having my, like, you're supposed to do all your, adolescent, preteen, 16, 17, doing all the wrong things, but not, like being a troublemaker, but not a troublemaker at that age. And then by the time you get to 19, 20 or whatever, you kind of know, like, all right, I had my adolescent age. I'm gonna grow up a little bit. Some people, I started at like 19, 20, 21 doing like very carefully some of the wrong things, and I got burnt real quick. I'm like, okay, yeah, no, like,
You touched the stove, it was hot.
yeah.
No, so the common theme I'm seeing from you guys, hearing from you guys, is that you also and even Sean out there in the audience, and I mean, you all know what's wrong, what's right. I mean, from the people that are out there, not everyone does. I'm not saying that, but it's like, you know, underage, I'm drinking. It's like shit. A lot of my friends in high school and college, my ex-wife, my ex-girlfriends, like a lot of them like drank when they were like 13, 14, 15, 16 years old. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I didn't. But at that age, we both knew what was, quote, right and wrong. You make choices.
I didn't want my parents to whoop my ass.
Right.
But there's a lot of that's fine, and I appreciate that. But there's a lot of kids that knew that their parents were going to whoop their ass, but they actually went and did it. It's that's what I'm saying. It's a choice, right?
Yeah.
So when you know it's right, you know it's wrong, you make a choice. I think that's one of the things that this has actually transpired through your guys talking already, and that's what I love about part 2 of this podcast is that I listen to you guys talking. I haven't said as much, but it's like one of those things is that I look at it as like the common theme is that you know what's right, you know what's wrong based on your upbringing. Even the people that like drink at a young age, they know that it's like, yeah, I can get in trouble, but I'm going to do it.
Right.
Criminals that steal a car, they know they can get caught. They still choose to steal that car.
Well, they're afraid of consequences.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like that's it.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
even if you don't have a good upbringing, I understand all that stuff, but it's like you still know what's right. Like you don't see someone that's like, well, I didn't know it was wrong to murder that person. Like I didn't know there's a law against that. It's like, no, fuck you. You knew. I mean, it's like we all make choices. That's the point. And I think when you know it's right, we do this with
your desire to do that thing outweighed the consequence of getting caught.
Yes, what I'm getting to is that we do that in everyday life. You know, a job's not good for you. You know it's not good for you.
Yeah.
You know you're just going into work. You're miserable. You wake up, and you don't want to go into the job. And hell, you could go get like say you don't have the financial responsibilities that you could go and get another job, but you just don't want to do it. But you know it's wrong. You still make a choice. I'm listening to you guys. I look at this like what we do in part 2 here. Same thing with like relationships. You know you're not happy, whatever it might be. You get yourself into quicksand because all you do is you just focus on that instead of actually like confronting the issue. The issue gets bigger and bigger, or you're already out and you just roll with it, and you just like, you know what? The next 20 years, I'm going to be miserable. And so you just stick through that job, that relationship, whatever it might be. It's not as cut and dry. You guys are talking about like underage drinking. You're talking about these things that could get you in a lot of trouble, these life decisions. Yeah, absolutely. But when you know it's right, when you know it's wrong, that's what I love about what Adrian said is that, you know, he was in Indiana. He knew what he was going through in everyday life. He's like, this is not right for me.
Mm-hmm.
I think that can be translated to a lot of other things as we get older, a lot of other aspects of life. Your eating habits, your exercise habits, your sleeping habits, your drinking habits, your smoking, your personal romantic relationships. It doesn't mean you have to bail on everything. It's just something that you have to actually address.
Yeah. And once you address it, which addressing it for me was making that decision. All right. Like obviously my girlfriend was like move home, like come back, find a place to live here, get a job. It's not that hard. And it's easier said than done because obviously, you know, when you don't have the greatest finances and your bank account has, you know, $5 in it, you're like, okay, you know, I can't just move on the drop of a dime. But when you finally make that mental decision, all right, I'm done. Like I'm going to do something about it. And then you start planning for it and actually executing each step of your plans. Once you start seeing the benefits of doing what's right for yourself, whatever eating habits, drinking habits, whatever it is, you then like, yeah, all right, like this is good. You know, this is what makes me actually, you know, happy. You know, I don't know. I side note when I did get him, you know, in jail for all of that. I threw my key when I was getting arrested. I threw my keys and my wallet to one of the ladies that was sitting there who hadn't been drinking, and I said, "Go take my car, go to the ATM, pull out said amount of money, whatever was in my account, and don't empty it and go fill my car up, because I'm gonna need to go home for Thanksgiving, and I want to have a full tank of gas to get home. It's 3 hours away." And I'm going to need bail money. And I knew I was probably going to have to bail my friend out. So I made sure they got enough money so I could bail my friend out. And on the way to the jail, I told my buddy, I'm like, he was a lot more drunker than I was. I was like, hey, like, I'm bailing us out. We're going to get out of here. You might have to spend a little bit more time in the drunk tank, but I'm going to ask if I could test again before we get to the jail. And we did. We got there.
You got a moth laying right on.
It's fine. Just get rid of it.
Yep. We got to the jail. They opened the garage door. We walked in. I was like, hey, can I blow one more time? Like, I blew a .02. Please, like, let me blow one more time. They're like, if you don't blow a 0, you're going into the drunk tank. I'm like, I promise you I'm gonna blow zeros. Like, I'm scared to death right now. I'm shivering. Like, let me blow zeros, or let me blow again. I'll blow zeros. Yeah. And I did. They hadn't taken fingerprints. They hadn't signed. I hadn't signed anything. I blew zeros. I'm like, can I just go? You
weren't driving. You weren't. No, you were underage.
Yeah. Can I just go? Like, you haven't even booked me. They're like, no, we got to book you. We got to do all this. So, I went through the whole picture taking and everything, and I bailed myself out that night. I only spent maybe 15 minutes, 20 minutes in jail. Like, I never even went to a cell. I just stood there at the counter the entire time. Yeah. And 3 hours, 4 hours later, I had to go
into a hotel.
Yeah. 3 hours later, 4 hours later, I went and picked up my buddy, and I went to work the next day. And I was like, all right, like, I have no money. Have a week and a half before I have to go home Thanksgiving. Like, let's make this work. Let's do all this. And I planned it all out that I was going to go around to all the neighbors that were friends with my parents. I was going to steal the newspapers from them.
Why would you do that?
I didn't
compounding a problem.
I didn't want them to see that my mugshot in the newspaper and tell my parents.
Was it in the newspaper?
Yeah, they publish all of it. So,
wow.
Yeah, but I got ousted.
Small town.
I got ousted because I got tagged on Facebook. Party at so-and-so's house, BYOB, bring your own bail. Like a week and a half later, because they were all making fun of all of us getting arrested. So on the way home, my mom calls me and she goes, "Did you get arrested?" I was like, "Oh, what are you talking about?" She's like, "Why are you tagging a Facebook post that says BYOB, bring your own bail?" And I'm like, "All right, story's up." Like, yeah, I got arrested. Clean. And I came clean. I told them, and I said, like, and I was so worried about what they were going to say, what they were going to think, and everything. And they're like, "Why didn't you call us?" I'm like, I'm an adult. I'm a big boy now. I bailed myself out.
Yeah.
And they're like, "All right, dude, I didn't catch any flack for it." They're like, "Wow, like we figured you would have called us or something, said, hey, I'm in jail. I got arrested for underage drinking." I'm like, nah, like, yeah, like I took care of it. I knew what I needed to do to get out of the situation. And yeah, they found out, and I probably would have told them eventually anyways, but it was just one of those things where it was like, I was so embarrassed that it happened, and that I never wanted that to ever happen again. And like, the court date, I was 21 by the court date.
Okay.
And the judge was like,
ironic.
Yeah, the judge was bringing everybody up, and I dressed up to the T, like suit, tie, everything. I looked like the lawyer going in representing everybody.
You know, it was right though.
And I knew that I needed to go in there and make it look, like I was remorseful, and I was remorseful. And he was like, "You're 21 now. Like, you can't even do this again if you try it." I'm like, "No, but trust me, I don't want to." And he's like, "Is there anything, like, does the state say anything? Does he owe anything?" And like our state representative or lawyer or whatever.
Yeah.
Was like, "No, he's fine."
So
scotch free, like, got out of there.
There you go.
Like, I made it a personal pact that I would never have that happen again. And because like I knew that was not what I wanted to happen for any more time in my life. One more time, two more times. Like,
so how does that translate to everyday life for you these days?
So now, like
because that is obviously it was a big impact on your life.
Yeah,
and on your emotions, on your mental, your psyche, everything. How does that translate? How many years ago was that?
8
years ago. So here we are 8 years later. Does that still tell the story like it happened yesterday? So obviously it makes a huge impact. Right? Yeah. You probably wake up sometimes thinking about that.
Right.
So how does that impact your day-to-day, every day options of how you live your life. You know,
Well, I mean, like,
again, you just
you
got
know
married,
what's
right?
Yeah. So you know what's right.
Yeah.
That's the topic of the night, and it
That's right.
fits so perfectly with that because you know when you're doing something wrong, you can get caught and you get in trouble for it. Obviously, you ride the line when it's circumstantial or whatever, but going through life, you don't want to take chances that are when you can read the consequences and see what they could possibly do.
Yeah.
Weigh them out. Weigh out your next job. Weigh out what you're doing day to day with your job. Like if you have a bad customer come in and is treating you just horrible, you have the option to be an asshole back because it's what you really want to do. But could that affect, a bad review, or could that affect, a different customer watching that interaction? Whether it's your personal relationships, you get into an argument, we get into arguments, with my wife, whether it's, what paint we should use to paint the room or what we should have for dinner.
Sounds intense.
But it's like, different things. Like, are you really going to make that an argument? Are you really going to weigh the consequences out? Like if you know that you could just walk away and be like, okay, like we don't have to argue this one out. We could just, let it go. But when you know that something's wrong, know that if you don't speak up, it could get worse.
Yep.
If you don't speak up, what are the consequences of you not speaking up? What are the consequences of you actually, doing something about it? It's just like coming from what happened to me and learning about it was know when to fight your battles, know when to not, know when to not do something wrong, know when it's right. No, I guess it boils over to the same old, saying is pick your battles, pick the situation you want to go for and whether or not you want to advance towards it or back down from it.
So how do you know it's right? When you're talking about that stuff with the relationships with your new wife,
I mean,
picking your battles. How do you know how to pick your battles?
I mean, how do you pick your battles? Like, how do you?
I'm
turning it
around.
around. Like, how do you do you do gut feeling?
You answer it. I'm asking you the question.
Like,
is she
I'm not
right now?
Like,
are you
no,
because she's watching.
No, she doesn't have
She's gonna watch
Facebook.
it later.
No, she don't have Facebook.
I'll send it to her.
No, like I don't really do gut feeling a lot of the times. I do a lot of, I don't know. I'm really bad at what others are going to perceive of it.
There you go. Okay.
If I do it this way, am I going to be perceived as lazy? Am I going to be perceived as a go-getter? And I know it's bad to live with the the going throughout your life with what others perceive of you.
Are you talking about others just in general?
Others, yeah. Certain. Okay. I mean, whether it's superiors or coworkers or spouses or whatever, how they perceive of you going throughout a situation or whatever.
So they define where you want to be as a character.
I would say,
yeah.
Like how I think their reaction is going to be.
Sometimes you need to have an audience, to be able to get yourself out of your own, like you say laziness or whatever, sometimes you get lazy, I think, thinking that I have a, slack here, I do something wrong, no one's going to know. So what's the big deal? Right.
Right.
But to your point, when you thought you covered everything, but then you were worried about your parents finding out that you actually went through that can be absolutely exponentially worse when it's something that your employer, your significant other, they find out that you were lazy, you did something wrong, you cut corners, you did something immoral just because it was easier, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
So that's not always a bad thing. I mean, it's like you were kind of like, I feel like alluding that it's not a great way to be, but sometimes the opinion of others, I'm not talking about like what you're wearing that day or anything like that. Right. But you want to make sure, like, if no one's watching, like, what does it matter? But you have the mentality sometimes that at some point someone's either going to be watching or they're going to know about it, and what does that say about me? So because you can do things in private, if they become public, then all of a sudden that's when you're questioning yourself. Well, you're too late.
I listened to a band called A Day to Remember.
Okay.
And one of the lines in one of their songs is "Character is who you are when no one's watching."
Yeah.
And if you want to say I'm a man of good character, I'm a person of good character, That's full. Like you're probably saying that because like you do good stuff in front of other people. You make the right decisions in front of other people. But what kind of decisions do you make when you're alone, when you're not being managed? You know, and those decisions I think do come from, okay, what's somebody going to think when they find out what I did? You know, or like what's their perception going to be? Like if I don't do the right thing when no one's watching, but I only do the right things when people are watching, you know, what are people going to think when they find out that I'm only that on a front?
Yeah. So you're gonna disappoint people. I'll say that you're gonna disappoint people. I want to say that whatever you do behind closed doors, I'm not saying you're always proud of everything. I think it's a goal, obviously, to be proud of everything. But at the same time, when you were younger and doing things just because you thought they were right, and you know, it's like you like you might have missed out on something. It's like, what are you missing out on? But at the same time, if you're only doing things because of what you feel like your perception may be at some point, I feel like you're also shorting yourself that in that regard. You know, sometimes you have to take a gamble. Sometimes you're like, all right, why am I doing things the way I'm doing them right now? And I have been doing it, and I'm not enjoying it. Right. So there's an essence there, I think, of doing what was the actual topic? Know when it's right. Know when it's right. It is the fact that if you're not enjoying it, that could be a big factor there. If your whole surrounding, you know what I mean, you're doing things day to day and everything else, and like everyone around you seems to be happy, but you wake up, you're still not happy with what you're doing, or all you're doing is getting burned. All you're doing is like, you know, like going to bed, you're like, it's a fucking another wasted day. Like I didn't enjoy any of that. You have to also turn inward. I think that you have to get to that point where you are also a valuable spectator of your own life.
Yeah, you're proud of what you are, the decisions you're making.
If everything looks good on paper, but at the same time you're not enjoying it, then there's something wrong. Right?
Yeah.
Nate, you had, I'll bring this up. So we had Ann Dimmick on, and it was funny. I was talking to someone listening to the podcast, and Ann asked a question.
Yeah, as soon as you said it, I knew where you were going.
Ann Dimmick from Watershed asked a question in part 2. It's like, if you had advice to tell yourself 20 years ago, what would you tell yourself? What would you change? And Nate danced around for, goddamn, it seemed like 30 minutes. And I tell you what, it was just all this stuff. He's like, well, I would tell myself this, but I wouldn't have met my wife. I would tell myself this, but I wouldn't have met my wife. And it's like, it got to that point where I finally was just like, okay, you meet your wife. What the fuck? Just answer the fucking question.
You meet your wife any other way.
Jesus Christ. Like, I get it. Like, she's listening and everything like that. It's not a dig against that. It was just like one of those things. It's like, you know, that's right. But there are these other factors that you maybe, you know, now that you've met your wife, for example, like where would you go? How do you know it's right?
And
the things you're doing other than that, like take that factor out. And I feel like even though I say that, you're like, well, I want my wife in my life. I'm like, again, it's like it's, I don't know how to say it. Like, you guys are married in this alternate universe.
Yeah. In this alternate universe, you do meet each other.
But I also appreciate the fact that he knew that part was right in his life. So he's like, I wouldn't change it. I would get kicked in nuts that many times if I met Jess. It's like, okay, what would you do to not get kicked in the nuts and meet Jess?
Oh, was that an actual question?
I thought that was rhetorical. I'm just trying to.
I thought it was rhetorical.
Of course you would. No, I'm looking for your input on this.
Well, no, I mean, when Ann asked that question, you know, going back 20 years, you know, that's going, you know, back to my junior or senior year of high school, and that was, you know, about the time I decided to, you know, take a different pursuit in life, and like, if I had stayed on the original course that I was pursuing, like in no way, shape, or form would I have met my wife. So that's why I was having such a hard time answering that question.
I know.
Because,
there was one road that led you to your wife.
I could have met someone. It wouldn't have been my wife. And obviously I don't know if that would have been better or worse.
Yeah. So, I guess I'm getting to again, Sean, who was on last week. Are we doing this one again? That's through. So no. My point is that let me ask you this. Let's dive into that a little bit for a brief amount of time. How'd you know your wife was right? Sometimes, there's people out there that you think things are right, but then you also get these gut feelings that are not. And how do you differentiate between a job or a significant other that it's right or wrong, or is it just like we're just in an argument? Adrian's arguing about like what to get to eat. Like that's how many nights in a row, or how many months are going by that you literally just can't even get along on that. That would be a flag.
I'm looking at his facial expressions.
I get tired of chicken nuggets from McDonald's and Taco Bell.
You can also order separately. Although that also is another argument. I understand that. I've been in relationships before.
Or you can just cook.
How about I get you chicken McNuggets?
We've done
I'm
that.
Go to Arby's. We're like, no, we should eat together. I'm like, well, we are going to eat together, but at the same time, I'm like, you want this? I can just drive across the street and get this. But no, if you don't want to eat with me, that's fine. You're like, I don't know what to do here. Let's take separate cars. I'll eat outside. I'll eat in the bedroom.
I don't know. We got into an argument where she wanted me to take her to Taco Bell at 11:45 p.m. after I had been asleep.
By the time they open, right?
Yeah, right. That's when they're most busy.
That's what I mean.
But I had been sleeping, and she woke me up with cold hands to take her to Taco Bell at 11:45.
Wait, cold hands?
Yeah, cold hands. I don't know where she got her hands that cold.
She probably put them on like ice water just to piss you off.
I thought it was cold feet.
Woke me up at 11:45. I'm sleeping in the recliner. Take me to Taco Bell. I'm like,
you sleep in the recliner?
No.
Drive yourself to Taco Bell.
You have a license, you have a car. But how do you know your wife's right, or how do you know something's right? I mean, I guess it's more or less, it's are the things that bother you on a scale of 1 to 10, like how many of them rate higher than like a 2 or a 3? Like, are they just annoying? Are they an annoyance that you can actually just deal with, like figuring out what to eat? Or is it bigger than that? Is it like, you didn't pay this bill this month, you were tasked with paying this bill this month,
we're being evicted?
Why?
That's a big one. That's a flag.
Where's your money going? Or
okay, so it's perspective.
Or you spent a shit ton of money on this that we actually needed that money for something else.
You knew we needed this money on something, like and like my wife doesn't work, so she does other things to contribute to the home life, whether it's cleaning or cooking, which I try to tell her, like, even though I'm the only one that works, you don't have to be the only one that cleans the house.
That's fair.
You know what I mean? Like, I dirty the dishes just as much as you. I dirty the laundry just as much as you. I use the bathroom just as much as you. Like we can all do the daily chores.
Pure statement right there.
Because she'll tell me, like, I'm sorry I didn't clean the house. I'm sorry I didn't do this. I'm sorry. I'm like, babe, it's not 1950. Like, I'm not walking into the door after work expecting a sandwich and a drink. Nice, but yeah, I get it. I
can obviously
understand.
Make your own drink. I've learned that tonight.
Like, I understand that if one person isn't contributing and another person is contributing, whether it's financials or whatever, where that can be a topic of contention, like
on both sides, honestly.
On both sides. Yeah. But to me, I rank that very low because I know that, with her not working, it's better for us, for her mental health, not having that commitment to a workplace, that she's allowed to stay home. She's allowed
pretty unique these days too.
Yeah. And so I'm allowing myself to rate that a lot lower on the scale of, arguments.
Okay. Yeah.
So we don't have a lot of arguments where I rate anything higher than like a 2 or 3 on the annoyance scale. Like, once it gets to like 4 or 5, then it's a problem. Once it gets like 7 or 8, it's like, okay, like we really need to discuss this. And then, a 10 is,
no, you're not wrong.
What the hell?
Yeah.
That's the reason I know that she's right for me, is because every one of our problems that we have is just something that I can rationalize and deal with. Like, and I'm not burying it because it's too much to deal with. I'm dealing with it because I know that it's really not that big of a problem.
Gotcha.
You know what I mean? That's how I know she's right for me. Like, everything that we argue about is an argument, but it's not something that needs to be like, we're done, you know?
Yeah, and I think that's something that it's a trend there, right? So I mean, it's one of those things, whether it be a job, whether it be a relationship, whether it be your own personal health or whatever it might be, is that if you have those arguments, if you have those, like, say, weaknesses in your diet, if you have those things, is this a reoccurring more negative situation than a positive situation? Is this detrimental to your health, whether it be physical, emotional, mental, whatever it might be? That includes that relationship, right? You guys are newly married, and if that becomes a situation, you have to address it, right? You have to, like, there are things that will slide a bit, and you really need to get back on it, and you have to actually just really confront it.
Yeah. You know,
With the goal, hopefully, of the better good. Again, knowing what's right, knowing it's right.
Yeah. If you know that the argument that you're about to have is for something that you truly need to have an argument about, like, again, going back to, is this what I really is? Do we really need to argue about this? And if it is, do it. Figure it out.
The food thing, there's an easy way to do it. It's like, I pick these days, you pick these days.
Right.
And you just suck it up, you eat there. If you don't want to do it, then we'll pick you up somewhere else.
Yeah.
If this is a deal breaker for you, there are bigger issues at hand.
Right.
That we are not addressing. Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You know when it's right with your spouse or whoever you're going with is, like, like what he said, every avenue that he could think of, that every decision that he made up to this point led him to his wife, because he knew, like, any of the negatives that did come along with it really weren't, they didn't matter. You know what I mean? Like, you could have made a different decision. You could have done something different, but if you would have done something different, it really wouldn't have been the better choice for you in that time. Because,
well, I mean, there's no way to know how things would have worked out.
Right.
Had things gone differently. I just sit there and I look at what I have, and I'm like, you know what? I've got it better than some, and it's pretty good for me. I can live with that.
Yeah.
That's good. I think that's what we got with Ann too.
Well, and I don't think
Nate is happily married for anyone out there listening, including Jess.
Well, and I don't think I talked about it a couple weeks ago when Ann brought that up. But, like, so my wife and I first met. We both used to work at Patel, and the first weekend that she was scheduled to work, I was on call. And that was the same weekend that we had a company golf outing. And I, like, struggled to get 4 people from our group, or 3 other people from our group, to actually be on a team together and do that golf outing. So literally her first, the Friday before her first weekend on duty and me on call, I went up to her and was like, you better not call unless you are in the hospital. You either have to be in the hospital or someone has died for you to call me this weekend. So because of that, she thought I absolutely
heavy flirting.
Yeah. Because of that, she thought I absolutely hated her.
Oh, heavy flirting, like 5th grade style.
But then
shoving her down a recess.
But then we ended up being assigned to the same study and working together, and there was really nothing going on between us. But then one day at the end of the day, like, she was just, our manager had said something to her that made her think, like, the whole day was bad. And so me just, like, wanting to cheer her up, I was like, hey, why don't we go meet at Dave & Buster's? Let's go meet at Dave & Buster's. We'll have something to eat. We'll play games. Like, let's just.
I got your tokens.
Yeah, let's just get your mind off this. Let's just go have some fun.
That's what I was thinking, Sean.
And
5th grade style.
What?
I said push her down a recess. He said, did you pull her pigtails too? That's when I was. Thank you, Sean. I feel like we hung out one time and now we're on the same page. I like that connection there.
But no, I mean that ended up being like the first time we hung out, and
Date.
like I consider that our first date.
She was playing hard.
She was actually the whole time we were hanging out.
Straight business.
She was thinking about setting me up with one of her friends.
Ooh. I want to ask her what she would give herself 20 years ago as advice. If only I would have.
Wow.
Glad it worked out for you.
Me too. Me too.
Good answer.
Good answer.
She's still watching and texting me during all
Good.
of this.
I'd say, Jess, you can comment on the feed so we can all see it. I mean, you don't have to text.
Well,
him.
typically, if she does comment, it's on YouTube, and we only have the
She has Facebook.
Facebook. Well, no, she does.
Yeah, Sean says, think we were asking the wrong person that question. I agree. Again, Sean, it's like right there on the connection there. We're about an hour into part two. We're doing this differently a little bit on the video side of it. We can dive in further. I really think with this kind of topic, it's know when it's right. This will last maybe a little bit, but I say we move into kind of the closing area.
Yeah. I think know when it's right could go on for a long time because there's so many opportunities to pick out, times when you knew it was right. So yeah,
we didn't dive much into the career and all that stuff, so you guys can bring that into closing remarks. I don't want to drink any more of these special bottles. What's this one over here? Is that 12?
Style?
That's the loose style with the orange.
Have some more of the 21.
Sure.
Yeah.
All right, that'll be my closing remarks. Adrian, go ahead with the closing remarks unless you want Nate to start.
Go ahead, Nate.
I knew that was happening. As soon as Steve gave you the option, I knew you were going to default that.
I'm a wrestler. I don't ever choose on the second round.
No, so the topic, know when it's right. I think some part of it, we also talked about what is right.
Right.
Sure.
I think we touched on that a little bit too. When you were first telling your story, there were people talking about being complacent or being stagnant. And I think a lot of us will be complacent or stagnant until something happens that motivates us to make a change. And sometimes that can be internal. Sometimes it can be external.
Mm-hmm.
I had planned on mentioning it last week, but I didn't because it didn't come up. But I recently got offered a new position or another position in the company I work for. And so I start that position after next week. And that all came to be because of an external factor. Like someone in the company did something to piss me off, and it reinvigorated me to search for another job. So like before 2020, like I was seriously looking for other positions, and then the world shut down. There were a lot of companies that stopped hiring or even laying off people. So I stopped looking for another job. And then a few months ago, there was something that happened, and it was another employee in the company, much higher up than me, but another employee in the company did something that really pissed me off. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to start looking for another job. And I started looking for jobs external and internal, and ended up getting 15 minutes after I found out I didn't get the external position, I got offered the internal position.
There you go.
It's literally 15 minutes apart from one another. Works out. But no, I mean, for a while, I had I had this notion. I was like, things they're not advancing. I'm just kind of stagnant. I wasn't complacent because I had been where I was for a while and I wasn't happy with it. So I was trying to get somewhere else. I was at least thankful for what I had, but I was trying to do something more. And it just happened to come at a time where our company needed to grow that particular department that I'm moving to. So the timing did happen to work out well in my favor. There was a meeting earlier this week that explain just how much they need help in that department. The president of our division talks about it, and I'm like, oh shit, am I getting over my head making this switch? Like, this department is like a couple months behind on some of their work, and I'm like, I'm not more than a day behind on anything, and I'm jumping to
Probably why you get this job.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes you sit there and you analyze like all the factors. You can be as analytical as you want to on things and make a decision. Sometimes it's just a feeling. You don't know why, you just have a feeling.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so I know why I wanted to make the change from one job to another within my company. If you sat there and asked me, you know, why did I propose to my wife? Like, I really couldn't narrow it down to like one thing that happened. It was
a multitude of reasons. Yeah.
It was just a feeling that happened. It came about. I did kind of plan on it. It was probably the most boring proposal any of you will ever hear.
You're on a couch.
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
we were sitting on the couch.
Yeah, long time listener right next to you there. Thanks for the story.
Hey, thanks, Aaron. Yeah, I mean, sometimes knowing when it's right is you sit there and you analyze the shit out of it. That can lead you to overanalyze and not make the move that you should, or that you in your gut you feel like you should, but your mind gets in the way. And I think sometimes that's one of the things that holds me back sometimes is I have a feeling that I want to do something, but then I overthink it, and the thinking is what prevents me from doing it.
It's a fine line between, do I trust my gut feeling, or do I think about it for a little bit? You know, do you let's put a pin in it, revisit it tomorrow, and if I feel the same way, like, okay, we'll move on. Yeah. My turn now. You know when it's right. Like I said, there's a lot of things in life that could, you could talk about for when you know when it's right. But I think the big thing is, when you come across a situation, if it's a life-changing situation, that like getting married, taking a completely different job, or just going about maybe your life choices in a different way, whether it's eating or working out or something, when it's right, when that's all you can think about.
Yeah,
maybe.
Yeah,
you plant the seed kind of early, and it's kind of a thought you think about every once in a while. And if it's something that's really important, and it's something that is going to change your life for the better, or you really think it will manifest into something that's like, all right, like, yeah, this is something that I need to do. And you'll find yourself creating situations that will propel, wrong word, that will move you towards that end outcome. I think. So like, for a job perspective, like I changed jobs or positions within Honda about 3 years ago, and I liked the job that I was doing. But I started to think like, maybe there's something more. Maybe I could learn something more. Maybe I've already completed everything that I think I can complete at this level.
Yeah.
So I started kind of looking for other positions, and this position kind of came in front of me. I looked at it. It was, on the positions page that we have. And I started thinking about it. I'm like, okay, yeah, it'd be kind of cool. I kept thinking about it and kept thinking about it. And I started thinking about it, it took a couple weeks where it was like, all right, like, yeah, I could probably do that. Like, I don't know if I'm well qualified, but let's see where this goes. And so, I got an interview, started really thinking about it, started talking about it, started talking to people within that department. And then that's when I knew, okay, yeah, this is what I want to do. And it manifested itself into something that I thought about 24/7, because then I couldn't imagine myself not doing that next job.
Yeah.
So that's when I knew it was right. Marrying Tasha, I knew immediately when I met her, this is somebody I'd really like to spend a lot of time with.
Good.
We were together for 6 years, 5.5 years before we got married. That's a long time to think about it. But towards the end, it was like, this is who I want to be with. This is who I want to build a future with. And everything started to fall into place because I started to subconsciously make those situations happen.
Yeah.
So it's my closing remarks.
It's good. I like that. And it's working for you.
Yeah. And and you can't be naive to think that it could possibly not work. So you got to
sitting on it for too long, right?
Yeah, you got to when it's wrong. So like again, you're constantly if you don't constantly reevaluate your situation every so often and check yourself to know when it's not right.
Yeah.
Or you'll fall into that hole.
Yeah.
That you don't ever really want to fall into. So.
Yeah.
But
you go ahead.
If you do fall into that hole, again, know when it's right to change. Know when it's right to.
Know when it's wrong, right?
Yeah, know when it's wrong.
Yeah. No, I think there's a saying of like, and this is just coming, like, honestly, this is not planned, but by any means, it's like, the best offense is good defense sometimes, you know what I mean? Agreed to win championships in a lot of sports. That is it, right? But there's, being on the defense it's being active and being very good at it, right? It's stopping the offense coming at you. I think a lot of this is know when it's right and know when it's wrong type of a mentality. There is try to stay in control to the best of your ability, right? And be all ears, be purely observational, but also don't wait for the things to happen to you. Knowing when it's right or when things are wrong, like you're talking about, Adrian, it's like there's a lot of times we do know when things aren't great, that they're not maybe right, and you roll with that job or that relationship or that lifestyle for a little bit too long, and all you're doing is waiting for that to make the decision for you. And that is, I don't want to say the best, offense is a good defense, but you're not playing either side. You're just waiting for the time to stop ticking on the clock.
Yeah.
And hopefully the coach is going to pull you out because you don't know what the fuck you're doing. So I want to say, like, the knowing what's right is you have to be active. You have to be really, really intentional in your everyday decisions, the way you live your life, all these things. Adrian, you were a big, even at a younger age that you were at that time. It's like you had the realization, you had the self-awareness, you had the perspective that this isn't where you want to see yourself going. You can't be in this spot. This is wrong. I don't want to necessarily say that that's the only reason things are right, because you're also touching on things, and I can appreciate that, is that there are times where you're like, no, this is right. I need to follow through on this.
Yeah, no one to quit, but also no one to push.
There you go. And there are times where even when it's right, it doesn't necessarily 100% work out. You're not always going to make every shot you take, even if it feels good when you do it. There might be some times where things will not work out, but that is how you learn what is right, what's wrong for you. And
if you can learn from that and go past where you stop.
Yeah, the only reason that things are right for you, it's not always good. It's that it's everything built up to that point. And that's where you at that moment in your life that this is either right or wrong, and it's up to you to make a decision. And I'm not saying make it in a very brash manner where you're just like, every little thing that pisses me off, I'm just going to walk away from it. I'm not saying that. I'm saying use everything that's built up to that point that you can actually make a good decision for you and everyone else around you. And I also can appreciate what you said, Adrian, that you have to, there's that balance there where, there are people around you that the things you're doing, is that going to be respected? Is it respected by the people that you respect their opinion of? That can't be your only guidance in life, because again, I brought it up earlier. your respect is for yourself as valid, as important, if not more important than the
Right.
people that are in your family, your circle around you, anything else. Is that you got to be able to wake up in the morning, look yourself in the mirror, and realize that I'm doing things today that are in a good progress, in a good growth, good habit, everything else. Am I doing things that make me happy, or am I just doing things to make other people happy? Because if you're just doing things to make other people happy, then clearly you aren't. That's not right.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a fine line you walk, and I think that we find that different times in our lives, and I think that every time that you find yourself in a situation that may be something where you're actually considering, is this the right thing to do, or is this not right for me? There's a lot of self-awareness, a lot of self reflection there. You may have to go outside and talk to people around you, but I will say that there's something that I know in my life, that even the things that didn't work out in all the arenas, they're typically, I'd say all the time, there was at one point that I'm like, I don't think this is right. And I stuck with some of them and I walked away from others. But what I will say is that I wish going forward, I will going forward, take what I've learned, and I'll be able to make those decisions a little bit more soundly. And it's not always in a like a scar tissue type of way where you make those decisions based on like the negatives, but you factor those in.
Mm.
And I think those are the times where you realize that the one person in your life that you have to make sure, be certain that you are making happy is yourself.
I think building on that, if you continue to find yourself in a situation when you're not happy, if you find out something isn't right and you change and you do it again, and then you do it again and you do it again, like, trying the same thing over and over and over, like at some point you got to kind of again look into yourself and be like, am I making other people happy by trying, and it just keeps failing?
Yeah.
Or am I making myself happy? Because if you're not making yourself happy, maybe that's one of the reasons why you keep finding yourself in that situation.
Absolutely right. Absolutely right. Yeah, you can be your best self only if at the core you're happy with yourself.
Right.
So guys, cheers. Happy Whiskey Wednesday.
Cheers.
Thank you for all this beautiful red breast.
You're welcome.
And for all you guys out there, thank you for tuning in. Share, like, and review. Share the feeds. We do these now twice in a night. And thank you for the cocktails as well, Adrian. Thank you to our sponsors, Tinder Box at Easton, for the Oliva, Connecticut Reserve. Also, thank you for the Upman Hispaniola from Altadis USA, and Josh Bentley for all the support. What was that, Nate?
I was whispering to Adrian, it's like, that is tart at the bottom of that glass.
Oh, there we go. Also, Cigar Company, Gold and Silver, and patreon.com/Bourbon and BS podcast. Sean, who was on the podcast last week, you've got some stainless steel whiskey rocks coming to you, or hopefully I'll just hold on to them until you come back into town so we can have you back on the podcast, because everyone really enjoyed having you on, myself included. And guys, thank you very much. And I hope to see you guys next week. Enjoy your week. Check out the Red Breast lineup. And